anytime you want. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, well, we won't do it immediately, but let's first, we're gonna talk about, today we're gonna talk about that thing called the given name index. And so first there's a little history about this thing. The hidden name, when I first came into the society in June of 1980, David Parke, number 13, sort of twisted my arm into becoming the historian and also register at that time. And when I went out there that summer and I picked up the materials, we have these binders that we keep all of our group sheets in. And at the time that I took it over, there were about 20 of these binders, and that was the extent of it. Right now, there is almost 70 of these binders. And in the first couple of years, when I get papers from a new member, I could usually look at the papers and I could figure out, okay, I know whose line this is. This is Robert Thomas, or this is Roger of New Jersey, or it's Thomas of Virginia. I could pretty well figure out everybody, from the top of my head. But as the time went on and the number of group sheets kept multiplying and the number of different lineage keys that were in use and so forth, it became to a point where I could no longer just look at a paper and say, okay, that's lineage key, ZX or whatever. And so it became problematic, and I had to figure out some way in order to get, be able to find a way into the group sheets. And so the way we did that was to develop this index from the group sheets that we use to find our way into the various lineage binders. As I said, now it's, we've got nearly 70 binders of family group sheets of Parke descendants in over about 300 different lineage keys. And we started doing this. This was not an easy task. It took several years to, get this thing, get all the group sheets indexed into the given name index. And as the problem is with databases, you start out, you say, okay, I'm going to want this field and this field and this field and this field. And then as you go along, you say, adding this field would be nice. So you add that in, but you don't you start populating that field as you go along. And the problem is that a lot of times some of these fields, as they get added later on, don't necessarily get populated right away. So that's the history of the given name index. The purpose of it is to give us, in the staffing level of the Parke Society, a way to find our way into the family group sheets in the various binders. Now, what it is and what it is not. The Parke Society is a clearinghouse of information, and it depends upon the materials that are sent to us or that we find in various places. Can I guarantee that everything that's in there is absolutely correct? Absolutely not, because I don't know the quality of the work of anything that's sent to me, or I can look at it and I can evaluate it, but it's not guaranteed to be perfect and correct. So, what it is, it's a clearinghouse of finding your way into the group sheets and to find the data that we can then pass on to our members. What does it include? It includes every surname Parke that is in the various lineage binders. Let's see if I can, okay, let's see. Okay, let's do this. Okay, let's see now. Figure out, how do I share screen? Okay, share. Okay. What's going on here? Yeah. Okay. What you're seeing now is a section of the of the given name index. This happens. I actually what I've done here is I've taken a look at the let's see how I can say this. This happens to be a report of the people in lineage key IW. Now, what I don't understand is, let me just check something here. Records, this, all right, let's see, filter, get this, okay. Oh, that's where it's wrong, okay. Okay, let's do this here. I can only, okay, left, ascending, right, ascending, okay. Okay, there. Now I've sorted them. Now this is for the lineage key IW, and it shows everyone that's in the been indexed in that lineage key. So the one thing that people say, well, don't you index the females? We index a female if they are a Park surname, you know, descendant. But if, let's say, Jane Jones or Jane Parks marries a William Smith, Jane will be in the index, but their children will not be. If it's a Joseph Parks and he has children, his children will be in. So why don't we index and keep track of the female lines beyond where they go out of the name? Because this is a park society. People come to us looking for their Parkses. They're not coming to us to look for Smith or Jones or whatever. And so it would be a huge task, and it wouldn't be of any worth to us to have an index of all the female descendant lines in our index. Um, if what we have is what's Parks are named people that are in on the group sheets. You'll also notice here under given name, you see we don't have the last name and the surname. And the main reason for that is because it is too valuable an item. Over the years, particularly the further you go back, the more variations you find in the surname. And people could have used more than one of the Park versions of surnames. So if it's P-A-R-K, P-A-R-K-E, P-A-R-K-E-S, or P-A-R-K-S, we don't worry about that because what we do is we get the given name. My own grandfather used 3 of those 4 versions in his lifetime. And in fact, Kay Park, who was the president of the society, number 10, for years, forever, she knew herself as Kay, K-A-Y, P-A-R-K-E. Well, come to find out that her father, who was an attorney, had decided that he could get more business if he had the name P-A-R-K-E. So in 1920, he proceeded just to start using, instead of P-A-R-K, he used P-A-R-K-E. And, Kay never knew anything about this, and she didn't find out about this until she moved to North Carolina in her senior years, and she needed to get a parking permit for seniors, and they needed a copy of her birth certificate. Well, they got that, and all of a sudden she was shocked. Oh my gosh, look at this, So that's why we don't pay attention in the given name index to the surname. Now, do we ever have people who are listed here that might not have a Park surname? Yes, and there is the exception is, let's say we have a Parks comes down and it is a how can I say this? They get married and there's a line that goes off and a female line that goes off and that has a surname. But then a couple generations later, that comes back to a Parks. And so in that case, we do keep track of, and let's see if I can find one here. Hold on here. Let's do this surname. All right, let's do it this way. Okay, you see these here? These are examples of where somebody has, the name has gone out of the Park surname, but a generation or two later, it's going to come back into the Park name. And so in that case, yes, we do have, we list those people in between. So if you have a Parks and there's a female and they have another surname, but then later on, somebody of that surname marries a Parks again, we want to be able to show that line. And so in that case, we do have those listed, you know, we list those in the thing. As you can see, there's not many like that, you know, just a few. And I try to work out that as much as I can. So there's that. So let's see. Now we keep
Ed,
this. Yes.
may I ask you a question? Because
Yeah.
on that subject, I know we have one line, and I think they're members, but certainly in the DNA project, where 2, 3 generations back, their Park ancestor or Park's ancestor changed the name to Andrews.
Yes.
Do you keep them in?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
Okay.
Because they are indeed blood Parks, but it's because the name got changed. Yes. But yes, they would. And I apparently don't have them in the index because that's in your DNA project, and that's one of the things that we are going to be working on is getting materials that are in your DNA project, you know, on group sheets and into the index. So yes, that would be an example. And I do have an example. It was in one of those that I just showed you. Where the person moved from New York. They quote went west, and we found them later on in Ohio. And the only reason we found them and got the hookup was that when that person filed a Civil War pension document, they listed their father and their siblings, not using the Park name, but using that name that they had adopted. And that was, you know, that was it. We tripped on that. We thought, this is interesting. Here's a father Thomas and children John, Paul, you know, and so on. Same dates and everything. So then we found out what the problem was that he had an argument with his father and just took west. But in a case like that, yes, we do show those people in our index again. That's a rare exception that we do that. We keep this is in Access 97. I like databases because you have this chart like thing, and you got all these fields in there that you can populate and give you information. One of the things I love about Access is the fact that when you, let's see here. Okay, let me see if I can get this to that. Let's go down to the bottom here. Is it going to show? It's going to show. Okay, I gotta go back to the 9 one. Why doesn't it show it? Usually it'll show on the bottom, and I don't know why it's not doing that now. It will show on the bottom what that field is and what it says. For example, now here is let's go across this and I'll show you what we have. This is just a review column that says, okay, I've looked at it, I'm happy with all the data there, and so we're gonna, you know, that's fine. the next column is the family group sheet number. And then the next four columns is the family group sheet number, down by on the left, the lineage key, and on the right. So what are these different fields? Okay, the FGS left is the generation from the founder. That's the person who comes to this country. Let me get this back in, let's see here. Let me get this back in the right sort order. Okay. Okay, let me put this. Okay, FGS. Sending FGS, right? Sending. Okay. Okay. So in this case, this Robert Parke comes from Ireland, 1725. And so he's the founder of the line here in the United States. So he is 01 IW1. And so what we have, we have like this here, the full FGS, we have it broke apart by sections. And then we have two columns. If we have DNA tests or so forth, we can indicate that here. We have the parent FGS. Now, where that comes into play is, for example, Robert's children is the second generation, and that's all these here. These people is his children. And you notice that the founder or the parent FGS is this number up here, 01 WIW1. If we have people who descend through this particular descendant, we put their PS number in here. So in this case, there happens to be, there's more than I could fit into the field, but like here's, 577, 783, 211, and others are descendants from Robert. And from his son, John, that same group is there. But from David, PS number 783 is the sole descendant from that line. And down here with Robert, the second Robert, PS number 211 is a descendant from that Robert. So we have on each generation, we have the parent ones and their children. How is that useful? Okay, if we go and find somebody and say, okay, we come up with this Elizabeth Locke right here, let's say. Okay, and her number is 404 IW082. Her father is 03 IW10. So I can go up here to 0310. There, okay, and that's Wilson. And Wilson's parent is 02 IW2. That's David. Okay, so that's David. So we can trace the line back to the founder by just going to, looking at finding that person, going to their parent, and then looking up that person. We have the gender is the next column. The surname is, as I said, is those rare cases where somebody goes out of the line and has a different surname. In terms of the name that we put here, this sometimes gets messy. We use the name that's most often referred to. If there is variant spelling, sometimes we have a second entry with that variant spelling. But we have those there just for the purpose of trying to find people, because not everybody uses the same name. For example, Kay Parke. Her birth certificate was Catherine, Catherine, but she always knew herself as Kay, Kay, period, and sentence. So Kay and Catherine would have two entries in this index. One for the name that she always knew herself by, and one for her actual legal name. In this next column, we have titles, etc. We put the information, if they were a senator or a congressman, or if they were a doctor or a dentist or something, we sometimes put those titles here. If they had military titles that are of significance, we put them there. And if they are a twin, we also note that here. You see Joshua and Sarah are both are twins. Now, they don't happen to have numbers next to each other, and we need to explain that. How are these numbers assigned? Basically, as we get the information, we assign the group sheet number. So no, they're not going to be in the proper birth order. That family group sheet number is just a mailbox. It's a place for them to be in our index, in our group sheets. So you don't, these children are not in birth order. As a matter of fact, Rebecca really is the youngest or the oldest of the children of Robert. And John, it happens to be the third child. But when we started working on this line, all we knew was John. We didn't know any of the other children. So as time went on, the other children appeared, and instead of renumbering and rearranging, we just assigned them a family group sheet number. That has no significance other than it is that place where they are in our system. If there are children by more than one marriage, we sometimes show sometimes show which marriage that child is of. For example, if John Parke had two wives and he had three children by one wife and three children by the other wife, we show which wife is these children from. And I see if I have any in this case. I don't see any in this particular lineage, okay? On this line, by the way, there's 415 people in this IW line, okay? So what do we do about dates and places? Dates, we use the year. If we have a fairly solid year, if like somebody tells us that they were born, 7 April 1843, 1843 is the number that will appear here. If it's about, then we put a C in front of it. And if it's the other case might be if there's a letter B that says we know that they were alive, but they died. For example, here, this Robert, the second Robert, he was born circa 1739, and he died before 1781. So we don't worry about the months and the days because that gets messy. And we take whatever seems to be the most firm date and of a person in terms of the marriage and the birth and the date. Again, these are aids to help us get into the group sheets where all the detail is. And places, place of birth, place of death. Again, we go by a state or province name. We do not worry about the fact that there may be a certain county they're in or that. We just go by the larger categories, either the state or the province. In cases like you'll see a couple here where we don't have that listed. Well, that's because nobody seems to know where they were born or died or something. And so they just are kept blank. So we have their name, if they have a title, if they're in a child of a multiple marriage, their date of birth, their place of birth, their date of death, and their place of death. Then we have, let's see, So over here. We have, okay, the marriages, marriage information. If they were married twice, then we have two different entries. Now, on our group sheets, unlike some systems, we put as best we can all the information about that person on one family group sheet. We show both marriages, we show the dates for the marriages, we show the dates for the spouse, and the places and that. And that we do because that, you know, just it's all the data about this person is right there on that one place. And again, if they don't give us the information, well, that leaves as a blank. The following column is spouse, and that's the name of the spouse that, you know, that was in that marriage. In this place, there happens to be two sisters. He married first Rebecca Carnes, and then secondly, he married Martha Collins. So for each marriage, there is a separate entry for that guy. So David has two entries, one for his first marriage and one for his second marriage. Continuing on in this thing, we have the number of children that that person had. And, you know, that in this case, you see with Carnes, the first marriage, there were 2 children. In the second marriage, there were 8 children. Now, you got to go to the group sheet to find out, you know, who those children are, or you can go down, you know, to David in the parent and find them there too. But, you know, probably at this point, you would go to the group sheet. The next column tells us, is there a descendant of this line through this particular descendant and marriage? There's a total of 8 people who are connected to this line. There's 8 PS members. In terms of the second one here, that's John. John, 6 of those members come through John, and one member, I'm missing one here. One member comes through Rebecca Carnes, that's 211. And really, there should be, I've been working on this. There's one member through this one, and that's 783. Now, so these were the original columns that we had, you know, started with when we started building this GivenName index. The next 4 columns are new columns that were added later on, and they're not always populated. And as we go through and work through group sheets and people's lineages and that, we continue to add information. I'm not sure if we got, let's see, there's most of these fields aren't populated at this time, but they will be eventually. So we would have the spouse's birth date or year, birthplace, the spouse's death date, and death place. The next 3 fields are fields that are of some use. It says where are there at least 3 places where something significant happens. You know, for example, if we know where the marriage is, then, you know, if we put that in here, where their birth is, you know, for example, Robert, whose wife was Elizabeth Russell, Robert was in Ireland. He came from Ireland, and he died in Pennsylvania. And there will be cases where we may have, here's a person here. This person, you know, who married a Fanny Thomas, you know, there was something that happened in Pennsylvania, something that happened in Ohio, and something happened in Michigan. It is just a, you know, another help for us to say, okay, do these things jive? You know, are they consistent? And that's one of the problems I'm finding with, you know, particularly these children of Robert. You know, some of them were born in Pennsylvania and some were born in North Carolina. Unfortunately, I don't think some of the information that people have given me is correct because, you know, it's clear that the first marriage, the first daughter, who was Rebecca, was Pennsylvania. But how far down the line were they all born in Pennsylvania, and when did they get down to Virginia? And so, North Carolina. So I'm sure that some of these are not correct. I also have one here that, that died in Virginia, which I have questions about, but that's what the papers show, so that's what we do. That's what we put down. So we have three different places that we can, different jurisdictions they actually lived in or did something in, a marriage, a death, whatever, so that we can, maybe trace things for that. The next column is a general remarks column. And this is used for all kinds of commentary. In this case, like for example, this Robertson, his spouse name, and I have here marriage in question. We don't know for sure what the deal is. This one here had issue of 8 children, but we think there were 10, from our group sheet. So this could be any kind of information that spouse surname may be Wallace in this case. See here, the group sheet shows Wallace, Wallace, but you see, there's questions about that. So here's a piece of information. Spouse surname may be Wallace, Wallis. So now continuing on, the next 3 columns is Soundex. And we got them. We put the information in there. Whether it's useful or not is questionable. But for example, there may be different ways of indexing a given name, by Soundex. And so we show the Soundex that would be used. For example, up here. See, Robert is if you're familiar with Soundex system, the Soundex system was developed for libraries in terms of the author's names. And so we make use of it with a given name. So Robert, it's a letter and 3 digits. And it can be a digit from 1 to 6. And it depends on how the things are sounded. For example, B is indexed as a 1, so it's in P. And we've indexed everybody we have in the thing. We have a Soundex indication for them. Has it been useful? That's questionable. But I hate to get rid of a piece of data once I put it in. So we just keep Soundexing people's names. And perhaps they could be useful if we want to say, okay, there's different ways for us to index the name Sarah, S-A-R-A or S-A-R-A-H. So, it has S-A-R-A would be S600. And so either one of those names would have a Soundex of S600. So we do that for every person. The next column is if there has been a change in the in the lineage key. Let's see if I have anybody here in this one. Sometimes, I have a case now where somebody might be have a current index of BU, but we think they're related to IW. So we would show over here what their old lineage key was, and just keep that for a piece of information so you can see that if you wanted to know that. The next 4 columns are concerning who put the first entry in and if there's been any changes. And you see, I've been working on this, and so 425 is happens to be my PS number. I sometimes use that, sometimes I use my initials. And the date is a Julian date. It's two characters for two numbers for the year. This is 1991. These entries were made, and it was done on the 343rd day of the year. All that tells us, when did we make this entry? When did we put it in? And has it been touched? And I'm going to be touching every single one of these entries. So again, I started on, the 4th. So it's year 2025 and the day is 004. So that's what's in the index. At the current moment, there are over 40,000 entries in this index. And, it is a basic tool for getting to people and finding out, finding them in our group sheets. If we've had some cases where we've merged keys, lineage keys, here is an example of that, in the remarks. For example, here, this lineage key LL have unassigned. It was formerly a Roger of New Jersey, spelled RODGER, with the old lineage key for this person that was the merge was 03LL2, but that person really is 2KY2. And so anytime we've, merged, lines, these lineage keys become unassigned. But we tell what happened to them, okay? For example, the lineage key BS ended up in U, or the lineage key OZ ended up as part of Roger, 4K44. So again, these are just, ways of knowing what has happened and what has gone on with these. So that's what the lineage, the GivenName index is. So that's how that goes. Now, how do I really use this? Okay, here's the biggest thing. When I get papers from somebody, if they've given me enough information, sometimes I know what the line is and I can find it without going to this. But many times I get there's lots of park lines that we don't know anything about. And so what I do in order to find out, who these people are, to get a handle on them, I go to the GivenName index and I look up the data that's on our sheet. Now let's take a look at a recent number, okay? Our recent number is 1738. And 1738, this is Bonnie Colson. And her line goes back to a Florence Dean Parks and Edward Charles Parks, Thomas Edward Parks and Edward Dean Parks, and an Honorable Thomas Park. Well, if I don't know who that is, if I don't know what the lineage key is, I don't know whether I have it or not, then that's when I go and, go searching on this. So how do I handle this? Let's see now. Okay, it's just not showing here. All right, let me do something here. Format. Let's do unfreeze all columns. Okay. All right. So in a case like this, where I usually start is with the spouse's name. Why do I do that? Because, I have a lot of Roberts. And if I were to, say, okay, if I were to say, let's look for Robert, okay. Oh, I know what I can do. Hold on here. Oops. Let's do this. Okay. Let's see. Look at all the Roberts I have. I would, if somebody tells me I descend from a Robert somewhere in the 19th century, I would have a heck of a time trying to figure out who they are. But if they tell me that, let's take in this example, Edward Dean Park, um, the spouse's name is Susan Wicks. So what I do is I go over here to this spouse column and highlight it and WILKES. Okay. And I say, okay, it's going to be any part of the first start of the field. And okay, there's the wick, but that's not the one I want. Wicks. Oops. All right. Okay, that just I don't have that one. Okay. Let's try the next name. Okay. Helen Oliver Scott. Okay, let's go here. Okay. SC OTT. Okay, so all right, I'm gonna look at this one. Okay, find first. All right, next. I'm looking for Helen. Okay, Helen, Aaron, Robert, Eva, Louise, Lucy, Smith, Andrew. Up. Sometimes I go too fast. Let's see. Let's go up. Okay, Helen Oliver Scott. Okay, that's the person I'm looking for. And I go back past here and I find, okay, Thomas Edward. Let's see. Okay, back here. And he is Thomas Edward. He is 3ZX7. Okay, and his parent is 2ZX6. So now I know, I have that identification. Now I can pull the lineage binder that contains the ZX lineage, and I'm in business. But would I have been able to find it without that? That's questionable. And so that's what I always do. I start working with the spouse names because they're less frequent and more particular. And so that's what's useful to me. So let's see, what else do we want to say about this? One of the problems about maintenance of this GivenName index is concerning when changes are made to group sheets. For example, I am working now on the IW line because we have a person who may be a descendant of that, but we also are taking a look at some of the materials I have and seeing is there any more information out there. So once we change the group sheet, we have to go into this GivenName index and update them. Put those entries in here or correct those entries. Then we scan the group sheet, and the scanned group sheet goes into the online, file, and the actual original group sheet goes into the folder, the binder that contains that. Maintaining this index is a real tough issue, but it's something that absolutely has to be done in order for it to be useful to us. So there is that. So that's where we're at there. Is there any questions? Have I explained it?
Well, I'll say, I use the given name index, and I learned a few things watching you manipulate it because I'm far from an expert with access in terms of knowing how to sort and make fields expand and that sort of thing. Also, just simply the search function, I never realized, like when you went past the one that you wanted, the Helen Scott,
Oh, yeah,
I do that myself, and I didn't know there was a way to go back
yeah,
to change it
you
to
can
up.
either go down or
So
go up, you know.
I learned something today that I'm sure I will be using. Uh, to play devil's advocate, uh, is there, and maybe some of you others have experience with databases as well, far beyond mine. So I'm asking out of sort of ignorance. Um, is there a way to create an extremely simplified version of this that could be shared online?
Yeah, what we do, okay, here's a couple of things. The one thing we can do is, you know, I can take an extract from this database and drop out fields that are not of particular use, or, that are sort of extra fields. For example, we could, oh, let me go back to that. I got this, this is the membership database I've got up right now. Okay. For example, we could, kill this column, keep this column, kill these three, uh, keep the parent one, keep the gender, the given name, um, choose whatever ones of these dates
Yeah.
you might want to keep in the spouse name. And maybe from the spouse name, you might want to have the number of children. And probably that we could, all the rest of this is just items that have been passed, added in over the years. Whether they are useful to members or not, I don't know. I I don't really think, frankly, the state fields, the places where things have happened may not be of much use. But again, once you have it in here, you don't like to delete it because there's manpower that went into getting that in. So yeah, we could do that. We could have a simplified field index. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, probably 13 fields we could do. We could do that.
Well, if that's so, it would still be in Access at that point, correct?
Yes, but we can always export that to an Excel file.
Ah, that's where I was going.
Yeah, yes, that could be exported. And in fact, the files that I kind of distribute on each email, each newsletter distribution, uh, a couple people get an Excel back, a piece of it. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, the one thing, and that's surprising, I don't know why it's not showing this, but uh, it used sometime or another, I don't know why it isn't showing it now. But one of the nice things about Access was that it would show down here in the bottom what that field was and explain it. What's the elements there and what do they mean? If you take it out to Excel, none of that is there. So, you would not know, if there's a code there, you wouldn't know what it is. Now, in a case of a file that's really stripped down, maybe it's all self-explanatory
It,
and you
it
wouldn't need that
it
information.
probably would be, although that simplified key could be
Yeah,
could be put up top. Uh, but well, that's very good to hear because I would like to explore that with you now that we're getting close to having the new website on. By the way, it'll should be within, well, it'll be this month, whether it's 2 weeks from now or towards the end of the month. But uh, if that's possible, the other factor would be we would need to filter out, I think, any living individuals that are in there if we're going to post that online. just for privacy purposes, but I don't think that would be an onerous task, even if it had to be done.
Well, we would probably sort by birthday and say any birthday after, let's say, anybody who had a birth date after 1920, we just delete all those.
Hmm,
That would be the way to do it. Now,
okay.
essentially, because if they were born in 1920, they would be 100 years old, 104 years old now. And
Hmm.
we have members who are old, but I don't have anybody 104 at this time.
Hmm.
So and that would be the way we would do that, so that we don't have living people showing up
Right.
online version. So that would be one thing. Another place where I've been sort of hesitant about posting this is if we post it and somebody comes back at me and says, that date should be 1914. Why did you get that date 1916? How'd you get that? Who did that? Hey, I put down what I see and so forth. If it should be a different date, fine. Tell me where that information comes from. I'll change it. Fine. I just don't want to take a beating because that happened a few years ago, about 15 years ago. I had a genealogist, a professional genealogist, rip me up one side and down the other about a piece of data that I had supplied a member. The member didn't bother telling this genealogist that this is an index for a clearinghouse. This is not a DAR thing. And that's the thing I want to impress on people, is that the data we have is the data that has been presented to us or that we have found in different sources. And I can't guarantee how good that data is.
Well, I think it's easy enough to put a short disclaimer to that effect. Yeah, above the thing. But just polling the room, does that sound like something that you think might be useful to you all as members? And obviously, it would be on the new members only password protected site. So this would not be available to the general public. Uh, Anybody have any?
Yes, I think it would be useful if we could determine uh, if there are conflicts between, as Tad said, uploading the DNA data and versus the lineage key that was assigned
Mhm.
through our group sheets, which in my particular case changed dramatically more than once. And uh, yeah, it would be good for me to know what uh, classification or what entries have been made in
Yeah.
the
I think
given
it,
name
yeah, I
email.
think one of one of the things that might make it valuable to our members is it's what I do all the time is for DNA purposes. If you're trying to find more eligible males
Yeah,
in a lineage for testing, you go in here and follow different branches down to the most recent information you got, and then you go online, census all the other resources online, and try to bring it to somebody who's living today. And that could be done by members within their own group, which I think should
yeah.
find it helpful. Magali, you had your hand up. You're muted.
Yes, I was just doing a thumbs up
Oh,
that, yeah,
I
definitely. This is definitely something that would be very nice to have online.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up to Tad, soon, but I really didn't know that it could be done this easily. When I say easily, I mean not having to almost manually rekey everything.
No, no. And that's a nice thing, I can export this to different types of formats. And that's, yes, I still use Access 97. because I have one member who, Gary Parks, he only can read the MDB file. So I keep it there, but I can also export it into Access 2010 or Access 365, and I can port it out to an Excel file. There's different things I can do with it. I've not tried. Sometimes when you export, you lose information or information gets messed up. But we can look at that and check that out and see what happens. So
Well, how it would probably have to work is export it into an Excel file. Then when we upload that to our Google Drive, which is where it would be housed, that would convert it to a Google Sheets, which is their version of Excel. They're pretty similar, but it would still be their version of an Excel file. And that would only be available for editing by certain people, mainly you. So that when it's posted to the website, it's merely showing what's sitting on the Google Drive, and it would be a view only.
read on.
But it can still be searched. That's
Yes.
the good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I've never used the Google Sheets, so I have no idea how that works, but
Well,
that's
we'll have a little confab. It's really they're not that different at all. They're not
okay.
that different at all.
All right. Okay. So there we are. Okay. This, by the way, what I'm showing here is a piece of the master file of membership, and this becomes um, one of those issues that is again, it's a database that is large, and it has lots of fields on it. And one of the nice things about this, and it given in the membership database, we also show, besides the normal information about their status and so on and so forth. Let me come on here. We show, like, the dues and that. We've now added a column. If they have a line that comes from Ireland, we show, yes, it's an Irish line and the county that it's from. We show, hey, come on. Now, this is the membership database, remember. We show their lineage key. We have information about the birth date and death dates and things like that, the name, the spouse's name, because sometimes when you call them, you're going to be talking to the spouse. So it's kind of nice to know who that is. The maiden name, the phone numbers, addresses, so forth. But then what we have, what's really nice, is that we have from their actual lineage application, we show their line. And in this case, this person, 745 is Carson Parks. He's lineage key 00, and this is his line. There, from John to Robert to James Ratton to Jacob Hill to Clarence Thomas. Let's see, where is it here? To Richard Hill and to him. And he's 700-243 Clarence Carson Parks. And again, so we have that information in the membership database. Now, this is another thing that perhaps we're going to want to talk about with the staff, about having this available for at least the staff in a Google Sheet. That might
Well, again, that's something I wanted to discuss, because we've talked about, we would like to put a member information spreadsheet on the new website, and that would be very sparse. It would be PS number, lineage key, name, and then with a contact email, which would have to be opt-in. So we wouldn't post that unless we get an okay from the member.
Mhm.
So that's going to be very, very small, but that would enable other members to say, "Oh, let me see who is a member in my lineage key if I want to get in touch with them."
Yes,
Uh,
yeah,
Right now, we don't have that ability, and unless they contact you and you put them in touch with others.
right. And I do. When I get a new member, if I have if it's somebody that has a lineage leader, like Roger, then I refer him to
Susan Avery.
Susan Avery, and she can give them the contact information. If it's one that doesn't have a lineage key, like there might be 3 people of that line, 2 of which are still living, I will give that information to that person in my first communication to them. So, all right. So there we
Yeah,
are.
so yeah, once we work all that out, that may not be there when we go live with the new website, but it's something we will be working on, just so you know.
Yep.
And at some point, you'll get an email asking for a response in terms of opting in to having your contact information on there. Again, only available to members.
Mhm. Okay. So, well, there's my presentation. Any questions? Any other questions?
Yes, Tad, how do you identify fragment lines?
Well, every line has a lineage key, fragment or immigrant line. So if a person can trace to somebody who's in Ashtabula County, Ohio in 1801, but they don't know anything behind it, they have a lineage key. And we put what we know about them, and it's a fragment key. And it stays that way until and if we find an ancestor that connects to. Then, as a practical matter, well, what we should do is, let's say if we find somebody who's got a lineage key AO, and we find they're a fragment line, and we discover that that founding person is the son of somebody in the Roger line. In theory, we should take those group sheets, renumber them, relabel them, and change everything, both on the GivenName index and on the group sheets and so forth, and to make it consolidated. But the problem is that is a really big, tough issue.
Yeah, I can
And so,
understand.
and so what I've been doing is in the group sheets, let's say this 1A01 happens to relate to 4K22. So on the group sheet 4K22, that where that person would plug in, I say see this lineage key, and I refer them to that. Okay, so they maintain, they're really Roger, but they're actually, they're still indexed under the other, other lineage key. Whether or not, I've done some consolidations, but boy, they are lots of work. And as a practical matter, it's not. I would have to have a whole household of people that do that kind of stuff. Yes, yes.
Well, to Patrick's point too, one of the things that we would put in as a field is the DNA group number that a lineage key belongs to. You see that when you go to the DNA pages, what groups, what lineage keys are in there. But when you go to a particular lineage key, if it's a fragment line, there will be a field next to that saying if there is DNA representation of that line, what DNA group it's in, so that you theoretically could also search in that database for everyone that's in DNA group 046, for instance, whether it's your lineage key or others. So I think that would help people if they're actively searching for DNA cousins and that sort of thing. It would help you find them much easier. Yeah.
That is being added to the membership database. Every person will have, if there is a DNA group number, every person who's in that group number, in that will have that as a field in their record. So I'm not sure how populated I have that. Let's see. Let me look at something here.
Well, while you're looking, we will have the lineage key catalog that has been published to date in the newsletters will be on the new website, and the DNA group will be there for each lineage key, which group it belongs to, which DNA group it belongs to. We're trying to cross-reference as much of this as we can so people can navigate and put things together, put two and two together for themselves.
I'm just looking to see. I thought I had
Is your hand up, Patrick? It's kind of barely in the screen, so I couldn't tell. You're muted. You're muted.
My wife was just asking me something and I was saying,
okay.
Yes. Somebody was just asked, made a comment or something. Did I hear a voice so there is a field in here now for YDNA group number. And I'm not sure why it isn't particularly showing, but it should be there. And I know I did, create that field. And again, it's one of those fields, right there. You see the YDNA group? This person is in group 028. That's that 00 line. And we also have their DNA test, or that actually, if there's a percent sign, it's not the person, but it's some relation to that person, close relation. That's that test is for. So
now fields like that are important to you and useful, but that's the kind of information that we would not include in a public database, simply because, first of all, anybody who's a DNA participant is under the code of ethics that the DNA administrators are bound by at FTDNA. You can't identify people by name online. But it's good to know within our group, within our organization. But
and again, these have been later added fields that have not necessarily been fully populated yet, and that's it's a practical matter. How many hours do I have?
Well, and I have to be honest, Ted, when you resign or retire from this position, I have no idea who is going to maintain these databases to the extent that you do. I really don't. Well, so if any of you here think you might want to take that job on someday, please get in touch.
Hear that? Or keep lighting a candle that I live to 100.
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. Well, okay. I thank you all for your attention, and I hope this has been useful to you. So,
Yes.
all right.
Do you want to stop the screen sharing and then
yes, I will do that right
pop
now.
back up before we
okay, there we are.
Say goodbye?
Okay, good enough.
I don't know if Susan's with us or she wants to jump in and say, I see a cattail over there in front of Dan popping up.
No, thank you, Ted, very much for presenting today. I personally find the information very, very helpful, and I think it would be great if we could get, it online. So I echo what other people have said. Again, does anybody have anything else they kind of want to talk about before we end the meeting?
Just that, do be aware that we're going to be alternating times every other month. And I know that could not hopefully, but lead to some confusion. We'll try to make that very plain when we send out the notice for the meetings. But again, the reason for it was that We are going to, and we had John here for a few minutes. I see it from Luxembourg, but that's a very late in the evening time for him. So by moving it back a couple of hours, it makes it a more reasonable time of the night for people overseas. And we are hoping to get more members in the coming year and years from the UK as well as in Europe. And so it's a way to sort of accommodate them. Unfortunately, that means the people on the West Coast, it's extremely early for them. And so that's why we went back and forth to try. And since these are being recorded, if somebody can't make one of those times that's not convenient for them on either extremes, then hopefully they'll be able to tune in and see the recording. It's not a perfect system, but now that we're going worldwide, some adjustments we felt needed to be made. But if you can join us for some of those meetings, I'm hoping, it may not be for the next one, we may not have time to recruit enough people, but as it goes along, you may be able to meet some new members and potentially cousins from the UK or in Europe. I'm planning to invite some of the Parke gentlemen who have turned up in the DNA project who are related to Dan and I, and see if they'll join us for the meetings. Whether they join us for in the Parke Society or not, that's up to them. But as you know, these meetings are open to anyone. So if you ever want to share the link and the invitation with any family members you think might be interested, please do. Please do.
And thanks everybody for joining us today. And we will be, our next meeting will be earlier on the Sunday, the first Sunday of February. And when I send out the reminder, I'll make sure to really put that in very bold print, that the meeting time, and then and I'll keep repeating the sequence like I did in the last reminder, which is what months are early and what months are late. So
yeah, I haven't set the agenda or the topic for the next meeting firmly yet, but I think it's going to be some aspect of looking at how to develop and find those overseas cousins in the UK. And so we may talk about finding how to find people online, and also what record sources are available in the UK as opposed to, we're more familiar with what we have in the US and Canada in terms of census and other kinds of information. And in some ways, certainly Northern Ireland, we know there are definitely challenges once you get past the 1901 census and earlier. But in Scotland and England, we have census information from 1841 on, and the civil records start in 1851, and they are very complete. So in terms of births and marriages and deaths, much more so than, of course, in the U.S., where death certificates didn't start happening until the early 1900s. So there's some pluses and minuses for researching in both places. And then prior to the 1841 census, then you get back into the old parish records, they're called, and that's mainly church records, baptisms and marriages and such. So that, I think, is where we'll be heading. So and as we alternate these months, we will try to sort of gear our topics, maybe not solely, if it's not a general topic, those that are more focused on the UK or those kinds of records would be on those earlier meetings that hopefully those people would be able to attend. And something that's maybe a little more US centric, if we were talking about, US kind of records or something, would be on the 3 o'clock time. But that's not, again, a hard and fast rule either. And we are going to get together soon, Tad and Susan and some of us, and try to at least settle on some of the topics for at least the next, say, 5 or 6 months. And once we do, then we'll put that information out in advance as well, so that you can, if there's something that you find a particular interest, make note and make sure that you have time set aside to join us for that topic. And as always, if any of you have an idea for a topic or would like to lead one of the meetings in a topic, absolutely, we'd love to hear from you. Always, always.
Well, Ken, I understand about the change of time and date, but being on the West Coast, Sunday is my church day, and I really made the 12 while I was late because I see someone that's handicapped, so we're moving very slowly.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'll make the 11 o'clock.
I can be with you on that one because I'm a priest and so I have church. And so 1 o'clock, I can make 1 o'clock. It's in the Midwest, but it's going to be, I'm going to have to move my butt after the second mass. I'm going to have to say, nope, no coffee hour for me today, so.
No, Barbara, I understand, and we talked about it, and it's a challenge, and I understand that for some people it's going to be tough, and if you can't make some of those, then hopefully the recording will be at least some kind of substitute. But we do like to have people here live and in person as much as possible for the interaction.
We sort of said we wanted to make it more available to others, and we switched it from Saturdays because some people have other obligations on Saturday. So I think we're not wedded to, we just are trying to find a good time, and right now this sort of seemed to accommodate as much as we could. If we find that it's just too difficult, then I think we go back to the drawing board and maybe go back to Saturday or something. But again, for a lot of folks, Saturday is a day that they have obligations. So we'll just keep trying to find a happy medium. And we'll just, I think, getting feedback from everybody is very important. And we'll see how it goes. Again, this is not, as much as we've put all the dates into 25, if it really tends to be problematic for folks, we'll go back to the drawing board for sure.
Definitely, yeah. So, sing out. If you've got thoughts and objections or whatever, let us know, because none of this is, cast in stone. It's
right.
all just kind of experimenting to try to see if something will work.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
Well, thanks, everybody. Really appreciate seeing everybody today. And I look forward to seeing everybody next month, if you can make it.
Mhm.
Same here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, Rick.
Hey, Ken,
Oh, yeah?
just real quick, I hope to get that obituary to you this week, the end of this.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We'll be in touch. Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Rick. I'll see you tomorrow night, right? Okay,
Yep.
good enough. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Hey, Rick, you jumped in there at the end. I didn't know you were with us. Okay,
That's good.
here we go. I'm taking off.
All right. Off we go.